UFOs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, have captured human curiosity for decades. From early Air Force investigations to modern congressional hearings, the pursuit for answers about these mysterious objects has been shrouded in secrecy, speculation, stigma, and scientific inquiry. Today we'll be diving deep into the U.S. government's involvement with UAP, leading up to the significant developments of this month. For legal reasons, this video and others in the series and every other video I've ever made is for entertainment purposes only. For centuries, humans have looked to the skies and wondered if we're alone. But in the 20th century, something changed. Strange objects, defying physics, defying explanation, began appearing in our skies. Was it advanced human technology, extraterrestrial visitors, or something else entirely? It all began in the late 1940s during the post-war aviation boom. Strange objects started appearing in the skies, which led to the very first government-funded investigation into UFOs. One of the most notable cases is known as the Kenneth Arnold sighting. Near Mount Rainier in Washington, private pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 crescent-shaped objects flying in formation at incredible speeds, which he estimated at over 1,700 miles per hour. Arnold described their motion as similar to saucers skipping across the water, which gave rise to the term flying saucers. This sighting was one of the first major UAP events to be covered by the mainstream media, and not only did it attract public attention, but also government concern. The other UFO case we all know about, or at least you've heard of it. It's the Roswell incident. Following reports of a flying disc crash on a ranch near Roswell, the U.S. Army issued a press release claiming to have recovered the object. But hours later, they retracted the statement, attributing the debris to a weather balloon. Ah yes, the good old weather balloon excuse. And although the Army dismissed this whole thing as one big misunderstanding, the conflicting statements, the secrecy surrounding the recovery of the object fueled a lot of public suspicion. The idea that the intelligence personnel who released the first statement couldn't tell the difference between a weather balloon and spacecraft is preposterous. The Roswell incident became the most famous UFO case in history and was ultimately the main catalyst for escalating the government interest into investigating all of this stuff. The U.S. Air Force launched the first ever UFO investigation unit called Project Sign to determine if these sightings were a national security threat. While most reports were dismissed as misidentifications, some cases could never be explained. One of these unsolved cases occurred in Fargo, North Dakota, and it's known as the Gorman dogfight. This occurred only a few months after Project Sign started, and it heavily reinforced its necessity. George Gorman, a fighter pilot with the North Dakota Air National Guard, engaged in a 27-minute dogfight with a bright white, fast-moving object. The UFO outmaneuvered his aircraft with incredible agility, stopping mid-air and accelerating at impossible speeds. This event provided military personnel with first-hand experience of a UFO's seemingly advanced capabilities. It was documented in detail, and it added weight to Project Sign's investigations into whether these objects posed a threat. But just as quickly as Project Sign started, the tone shifted. Only a year later, in 1949, Project Sign was replaced by Project Grudge. Its mission? To discredit the phenomenon. Following Project Sign, Project Grudge took a more skeptical stance. attributing sightings to natural phenomena or human error. The primary goal was to explain UFO sightings as misidentifications, hoaxes, or psychological phenomena. The secondary goal was to reduce the public's interest and media attention on UFOs by discrediting the reports. It dismissed any need for further scientific study or resources dedicated to UFO investigations. It characterized witnesses as unreliable, often attributing sightings to hysteria or misperception. The good old propaganda trick: if you can't beat them, debunk them. And yet, the mystery lingered. The official stance was clear. UFOs were weather phenomena, optical illusions, or misidentified aircraft. But not everyone agreed. Even within the Air Force, whispers of unexplained cases persisted. Critics argued that Project Grudge ignored credible reports and failed to investigate sightings rigorously enough. Despite the official skepticism, the UFO sightings didn't stop. In fact, they intensified. 3 years later, in 1952, the military efforts evolved once again. The Air Force realized that Project Grudge's approach was not satisfying public or even internal demands for a more thorough investigation of UFOs. So with that knowledge, Project Blue Book was created. Project Blue Book is by far the most famous UFO investigation. It reviewed over 12,000 reports. Reports went into two categories. Number one was identified. This attributed to known phenomena like weather balloons, aircraft, stars, or natural atmospheric conditions. Category 2 were considered unidentified. These cases were where no plausible explanation could be determined after thorough investigation. The program relied on witness testimonies, photographic evidence, radar data, and expert analyses of flight characteristics and atmospheric conditions. One case that's still sitting in the unsolved category would be the Washington, D.C. UFO incident of 1952, where several UFOs were observed on radar and visually over the U.S. Capitol and other key locations. Military jets were scrambled but inevitably failed to intercept the objects, which displayed erratic and extraordinary flight behavior. Though Blue Book dismissed most cases as explainable, 701 cases remain unexplained to this day. And even as Project Blue Book investigated UFOs, many insiders claim that, like Project Grudge, it was more about debunking than discovering. One of the more popular names associated with Blue Book would be Dr. J. Allen Hynek. He was an astronomer who served as Blue Book's scientific consultant. Initially a skeptic, Hynek later became a proponent for UFO research and argued that some cases deserved much more serious scientific inquiry. He introduced the classification system of UFO encounters, including close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. Close encounters of the first kind, I would say, is the most typical. This is when you spot a UFO in the sky and there's no evidence left behind. But the second kind, a UFO leaves some physical trace, like burns on the ground or broken branches or radiation. The third kind, you make contact with the UFO. You see an alien pilot aboard or some other life form. Nowadays, we also have close encounters of the fourth and even the fifth kind. The fourth kind involves human alien abductions, where humans are taken into alien craft and sometimes experimented on. The fifth kind is human-initiated communication between aliens and humans. The most common example of this is Dr. Greer's CE5 protocols. Researchers like Dr. Hynek eventually admitted the program had a clear agenda to dismiss the phenomena.
In my association with Project Blue Book, I know very well that it was not a scientific project. I also know that they never would notify the media when an interesting case came up. They did everything they could to
Keep it
I should
down.
keep it
Keep it
down.
down.
So they definitely withheld information.
In 1969, after 17 years of UFO investigations, Project Blue Book released its findings. The conclusions were that UFOs posed no threat to national security, that there was no evidence of advanced technology or extraterrestrial origins, and that continued study of UFOs was unlikely to yield significant scientific discoveries. Knowing what we know now, holy crap. So basically, the government told everybody, UFOs aren't real, aliens aren't real, neither are ghosts, leave us alone, we have bigger fish to fry. And understandably, at the time, based on these findings, the Air Force terminated the project. Blue Book was officially terminated in 1969. And the 701 unexplained cases remain shrouded in mystery. Of course, we have to remember that all of this went down before the internet, of course, and before the media really was what it is today. The secrecy surrounding these programs meant that they were primarily managed by military and intelligence agencies with very limited public disclosure. Critics argued that Blue Book's closure was premature and politically motivated at the time, aimed at quelling public interest rather than addressing unanswered questions. Dr. Hynek's later work pointed out flaws in Blue Book's methodology, including rushed investigations and a bias towards debunking.
The phenomenon has not changed a great deal. It has not changed materially since 1947. And I'm quite sure that neither we nor the Russians had anything like the capabilities demonstrated by the UFOs in 47. I don't think we have now.
Many UFO enthusiasts believed the unexplained cases warranted deeper investigation, sparking theories that the government continued this research underground. So despite its official closure, some researchers believe that Project Blue Book's work was absorbed into classified programs, possibly continuing under different names or within black budget operations. After Project Blue Book's closure, the US government appeared to leave the UFO topic behind. It was just the beginning of something much, much larger, buried beneath layers of secrecy and sequestered from us by the cabal of the intelligence community. We have barely scratched the surface at this point. Next episode, we'll be diving into the whistleblowers who are risking it all to reveal what exactly is going on in these black budget programs. So until then, keep asking questions, and don't forget to look up.